if you think it's dangerous propaganda to say that like there are certain things we can learn about how China was able to develop so rapidly, if you find that to be dangerous propaganda, then you're a deeply unserious person, okay? If you think it's dangerous propaganda to promote international cooperation with every country, including with China, and you think that that's dangerous propaganda, perhaps you're the one who's doing dangerous. Anyway, apparently, experts sound alarm amid concerns over Chinese influence in schools. Where does anyone have a timestamp of where I get an honorable mention by Fox News? Do you know? Apparently, this when talking about it, Xi Van Fleet, who survived Mao's Cultural Revolution, joins Fox and Friends Weekend to discuss Chinese influence in American schools and her broader warning on communism nationwide.
Owned groups have been buying up schools across the United States, including Spring Education Group, with ownership of 240 schools across 19 states. And they're funded by a Chinese investment firm whose CEO has been described as, quote, an ardent Chinese nationalist. Xi Van Fleet was born in China, and she lived through the Cultural Revolution.
Short. We'll just watch
it. She joins us now. Xi, always great to have you on. You know what? I've been following a lot of stuff with the CCP. I didn't even know that they were, owning or donating to 240 schools. Explain to our viewers why the Chinese would want to have this happen, what they're up to.
Yeah, I think it's so important for Americans to understand that CCP, since its founding in 1921, always regard America as its arch enemy and has been never stopped working.
No, literally wrong. Wrong to a degree where it's like, not only is this wrong, but it's so wrong that I would go so far as to say that like the USSR post World War II was the number one op for America and vice versa. Whereas China, in many circumstances, in many instances, with the exception of like the Korean War, for example, was aligned with the United States of America on foreign policy, as a matter of fact. So definitely wrong. And also extra wrong when you say like, oh, since 1921, that's super wrong. They were incredible allies during World War II.
To weaken and undermine the United States in order to replace it to become world superpower. And education has been the very important battleground. And since the early 2000s, they started with the higher education, with the Confucius institutions everywhere in the United States. And then they moved to the public schools with donation and exchange programs such as sister school programs. And now they're moving towards private schools, buying a lot of them. And so in 2015, they bought the high school, New York Military Academy, where Trump attended.
Yeah.
And why? They're not here to make money. They're not invest to make money. They're here to take over American education and turn our classroom into the little red classroom and our education into American education with CCP characteristics. What they really want is generations of people like Hasan Piker. This influencer just went to China and then told his millions of followers that China offered the solution for America. Communism is the solution to the problems that capitalism created in America. That is what they want. And that is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it certainly.
That's right, baby. That's right. That's right. That's what I did. That's me. Let's go. Dude, I like that this is a controversial opinion. A controversial opinion is, hey, instead of, I don't know, going to war with Venezuela, we should do robust development projects in the United States of America, not dissimilar to how the People's Republic of China has been able to modernize and urbanize at a rapid rate. Like let's use some of the unlimited resources that we have in making America a dominant force for good around the planet, as opposed to endless wars, as opposed to endless extraction of natural resources from the global south. Nope, not allowed. We have to do more war with Venezuela. You. It's crazy that is like that's an unacceptable thing. Like this is considered, not only is it considered unacceptable, but it's actually considered inappropriate and dangerous. Okay? In a world where this is considered inappropriate and dangerous, that someone says, hey, you know, while China has plenty of issues in its own governance as well, and you know, ways of governing that Westerners would probably not appreciate, there is a lot of good lessons that we can learn from how well they've developed in such a short period of time. And you say that, and people go, absolutely not. How dare you say that? That is insane. How dare you say that? It's crazy.
Is and by the way, you mentioned that New York Military Academy, that is the school that President Donald Trump. So clearly, they're trying to influence the elites in the future elites.
Like the Confucius are basically like educational partnerships. Okay, that's what they're talking about. It's like to promote Chinese language and culture. That's it. That's the stated goal of Confucius Institutes. It's like the same principle behind like sister cities, you know what I mean? To promote like international cooperation, things like that. And these people literally lose their minds. They're like, no, this is propaganda. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you think it's dangerous propaganda to say that like there are certain things we can learn about how China was able to develop so rapidly, if you find that to be dangerous propaganda, then you're a deeply unserious person, okay? If you think it's dangerous propaganda to promote international cooperation with every country, including with China, and you think that that's dangerous propaganda, perhaps you're the one who's doing dangerous propaganda, okay? It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Ultimately, all of this revolves around basically saying China bad, China bad, China bad, China wrong, China bad. That's it. Yeah, I'll get to this quick TikTok why rich Chinese students are studying in America. Oh, I know this one. Here, I know the answer to this. It's because they can't get into Peking University or Chinese universities, and that's why wealthy people go to America, because in comparison to Chinese institutes of higher learning, it's much easier to get into Harvard, especially because there isn't a lot of greasing of the wheels to get into there isn't a lot of greasing of the wheels to be able to get into the Chinese universities. It's a strictly meritocratic process. It's the same principle behind private institutes of higher learning in Turkey, as opposed to the much more competitive public institutes in Turkey. It's the same for Turkish public high schools and public colleges, which are free and are incredibly difficult to get into because it's purely based on your scores, as opposed to private institutes, which are a little bit easier because there is already a paywall there. That's it. The reason why a lot of wealthy children of wealthy Chinese people and like party members and stuff come to the United States of America as opposed to staying in China is because they can't get into the best possible Chinese university. It's the same in any country that has like a public. It's identical in any country that has a public institute of higher learning process. If you have public colleges, public universities, they are going to be really, really, really competitive. It's not just almost all of Asia that follows this structure, for the record. It's just most countries that have a public system has a similar merit-based approach. France is different in that regard. University is public and easy to access, but in Japan, it is how you describe too. This isn't to say that like the universities, like the top public, like the second tier universities in China or in other places are bad. They're still pretty good. It's just that you can actually basically buy your way into an institute of higher learning in the West, specifically in America, especially because American universities rely on foreign students who pay like 2x, 3x the amount to fund all of these big initiatives and big projects. That's part of the reason why Donald Trump actually came back and dialed back his aggressive approach to Chinese students coming to the United States of America and was saying like, no, this is good, actually. We need the Chinese. And then Laura Ingraham famously was like, what do you mean? They're not French. And he was like, oh, do you think the French are so good? They're not good. We need the Chinese. We need the Chinese. Sen ABD'ye gitmeden Bilkent'e girmemiş miydin? Hayır. Hayır, ben Amerikan Üniversitesi, ben ÖSS'ye girdim ama hiç yani bakmadım bile. There's also an associated prestige on certain countries with regards to universities as U.S. universities better. It isn't something everyone necessarily agrees with, but employees are unfortunately older people that have internalized white supremacy and American exceptionalism. Yeah, I'm saying you get more bang for your buck. Like, if you are Ank ÖSS dedi. Yes, evet Ank'ım abi. Amcayız. Hasan amca. Hasan abi değil, Hasan amcayız amına koyayım. Evet, ÖSS'ydi benim zamanımda. The name of the I'm so old that the Turkish chatters are making fun of me and calling me Unk because the national test, the name of the national test has changed because I took this test in 2008 and the name of the national test in Turkey has changed. I don't even know what it's called now. But back in my day it was called ÖSS. Anyway, ancient history now. All right, let's move on from this. Let's get into some welcome to Unk status. I've been at Unk status.
Congress is asking new questions about
lawmakers. Chinese TikTokers are spitting HasanAbi.
Americans living in a superior lifestyle compared to Chinese. Dude, stop sending me these stupid messages. I'm 38 years old. If in my 20s, I may believe you. Also, I lived in California, Bay Area, 4 years. I see your homeless people. I see your middle class people. Okay, if you are a millionaire, you have good life in United States.
True.
When you want to compete two countries, people living standard, compare rich to rich, middle class to middle class, poor to poor. Your poor people sleeping on the street cannot afford fresh food. In China, the poor people sleep in their own home, able to afford everything basic human needs. All right, electricity, internet, fresh food, just medical bills also, college even. You know, that's how affordable for our Chinese. And middle class, our middle class in China, their living standard probably better than your upper middle class. You never lived in China, dude. You need to wake the hell up.
Yeah, but can he afford Coca-Cola and Netflix? I mean, yeah, you can. But to be fair, it's not the same. You know what I mean? It tastes different when you're tasting it with freedom. Reading this, Oxfam, 10 U.S. billionaires have had their wealth increase sixfold since 2020. No, I know. It's just like capitalism creates this incredible consolidation of wealth, right? And basically the number of winners gets smaller and smaller every fucking year. Okay? The number of people who are winning under capitalism gets smaller and smaller every year, because that's just how the system is designed. And eventually it's just going to be like one guy who is the quintrillionaire, and even the other billionaires are like, we don't have enough money. We're suffering. It's awesome. So look forward to that. It'll probably be Elon fucking Musk. It's getting to a point where, like, you know, in America, millionaires are what remains of like the middle class existence in this country, and the actual middle class, the overwhelming majority of people, are relegated to what you would consider to be lower class, okay, like poorer than middle class. This doesn't mean that like millionaires are not doing great overall. They are. It's just that the way that wealth consolidation has worked makes it so that most of the people that you would consider middle class are now not doing middle class existence. Like, they don't have a similar material existence that the middle class had in like the fucking 70s and 80s. It's awesome. Great stuff overall. We should just have one person own everything, I think. Yeah, the top 10% of wealth in this country is responsible for 50% of consumer spending, and not a single person thinks this is bad. Well, or at least not a single person in power thinks this system is like fundamentally busted. Okay? Jackson Hole and Alpine, Wyoming are great examples. The millionaires complained that the billionaires kicked them out of Jackson, and they have to build their $15 million mansions in Alpine now. Yeah. How about my system where God owns everything and there's one chosen man to control it, all on God's behalf? I mean, that's where we're moving towards. Yeah. Around 70% of the U.S. economy depends on consumer spending. As wealth concentrates in the richest 10%, the rest of America can't afford to buy enough to keep the economy running. And even within the top 10% of wealth, the wealth consolidation still continues. Ironically enough, in the top 10% of wealth, they are the people, myself included obviously in this bracket, are living highfalutin, fancy lifestyles, okay? At a time when there is like tremendous pain and tremendous struggle for regular ass working class people, okay? But even within the top 10% of wealth, even there is a tremendous amount of wealth consolidation happening there as well for the top 1% in the top 10% of wealth. It is fucking insane. That's why you see articles that are brain breaking. I saw something about like a woman who left her Google job where she was making $369,000 a year and how she was able to secure $1.5 million in retirement funds to be able to retire early. And it's like, really? This is what we're talking about? Oh yeah, just get a fucking Google job for $369,000 a year so you can actually retire. It's that easy. It's that simple. Meanwhile, you got people that are working, 10 years on their job with no prospects of getting no prospects of career advancement, and retirement seems impossible. It's incredible stuff. Let's see what Robert Reich is saying here. Around 70% of the U.S. economy depends on consumer spending. As wealth concentrates in the richest 10%, the rest of America can't afford to buy enough to keep the economy running. This is a huge problem, and even America's most powerful CEOs are starting to sound the alarm. Oh, yeah, the McDonald's CEO was complaining about this.
The Big Mac has a big problem. According to the CEO of McDonald's, fast food should dip in visits from lower and middle income customers in the first quarter of 2025. The reason? Customers can't afford it.
Holiday spending reached a record sum this year. You are exaggerating a bit. Okay, once again, you have to look at who's doing the expenditure, who's doing the spending, because that doesn't change what I'm talking about. Again, the top 10% of wealth is responsible for 50% of all consumption in this country now. Okay, the top 10% of wealth. That means the bottom 90%. The bottom 90% is only responsible for half of all consumption in this country. That's insane.
While the stock market is riding high and the Trump administration is slashing taxes for corporations.
Yeah, spending is up, except items purchased is down. Spending is up, and yet the number of people spending is down. I wonder how that happened. Perhaps inflation might have something to do with it. I don't know.
Nothing is trickling down to everyday Americans.
What we see is it's really kind of a two-tier economy. If you're upper income, earning over $100,000, things are good. What we see with middle and lower income consumers is actually a different story.
This shouldn't be all that surprising. The warning signs were there for anyone paying attention.
We are on the way to becoming a two-tiered society, composed of a few winners and a larger group of Americans left behind.
The other side of this story, of course, is debt. The other side of this story is debt. Because, yeah, also saw a breakdown showing huge percentage of holiday spending was financed by using buy now, pay later apps. You got fucking Klarna. You can do advanced payday loans to purchase Domino's in this country. And you're out here being like, well, spending is up technically. Okay, so is debt. None of this is good. I feel like all of this is alarm bells ringing. I know a lot of chatters have made jokes about how I have not had a credit card for most of my life and refused to get it. Okay, but there is a principle behind that too. It's not even like an ethical thing. It's just that I've always had the mentality where it's like the idea that I have to like take on debt specifically so that people can realize that like or institutions can recognize that I'm good with the debt is so stupid. And it's weird because like must be nice. No, I'm talking about when I was broke, dude. What the fuck? Like this structure is entirely different elsewhere, okay? This structure is entirely different elsewhere where if you don't have a credit card in the United States of America, You are not a part of the system. You're not a part of the credit scoring system. They punish you for not having a credit card, right? So technically, even if you are spending only as much as you have, okay, without taking on debt, and ironically enough, the appropriate way to do this is by taking on debt, but only as much as you can pay for it, right? But there's no need for that additional middleman there. There's no, like, there should be, Hasan, you were not broke? Okay. No, I was. I know that a lot of people say that that's not the case, but I absolutely fucking was. It's so crazy that this is, oh my God. I do not have a billionaire parent, you fucking losers. Okay. Oh my Lord. It's so funny because all of this is straight up on camera. Okay. I know, but you still were not. I got money back from the American government my first year of employment. Okay. I don't know why people think that they know better than myself about my actual existence, my living circumstances. I lived in the fucking kitchen of a frat house the first year I lived here. Even at the point where I was on Twitch, I was making 60 grand a year, which is literally nothing for Los Angeles. Okay. With 3 roommates. Anyway, none of this actually matters. People think you're saying you grew up poor. No, I didn't grow up poor. I never said I grew up poor. I grew up very affluent. I'm talking about the period of my life when I was in fucking college, or post-college rather. In any case, at that point, simply because your parents had money, people will say you couldn't have been broke, regardless of whether you had access to it all the time. No, but my parents also no longer had money by the time I got to college. So it's wrong. It's something that I've talked about quite a bit. Anyway. Regardless, I don't know why we're talking about this. It's so fucking stupid. Yeah, there's like clips that you can find from back then.
Just like getting this chicken out of the little container. And unfortunately, a lot of people use like organic chicken and whatnot. I use whatever kind of chicken I can get because I'm not very wealthy. So that's part of the reason. This is like a very...
No, but I'll have you know, I was actually lying. I was faking it. I was actually a billionaire at this point, but I just chose to lie and continue along with this lie by living with 3 roommates at the time. It was a deep 5-head infiltration move, you know? Lol, that is the kitchen of a rich person? Yeah, exactly.
It's like a very cheap alternative, but it tastes really good. It has really good macros, so that's literally why I do it. It's one way I've been able to lose so much weight. And I know so many people ask this all the time, which is why I'm doing this right now and I'm talking about it. So yeah, this is already like a difficult process, guys. To like get this chicken, to free this chicken from its boundaries, while also trying to describe to you the process in which I
Chat is being so fucking annoying today. Holy shit. This is why the community doesn't grow as much. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. Anyway, like all of this stuff is also like readily accessible for people who are wondering. You know, if you wanna see the background of Hasan HasanAbi Piker, but this is when I was like explaining the process of using manager's special chicken. That's what I did to get high protein. I would eat chicken, but I would go to Ralph's or Pavilions and get manager's special chicken, which was like about to expire. Roughly how many years ago was this? This is in like 2018, I think. But wait, how the fuck? Why did I even talk about that? How do we get here? Oh, we were talking about fucking. We were talking about like even. Ironically enough, at my brokest point, I didn't have a credit card at all. And then someone said I wasn't poor. I was never poor, unless you're literally homeless, which is crazy. Yes, I was not like homeless or anything. Regardless, the process is different. The process is different. Like the smart way to do it, the adult way to take on debt, which is an absolute necessity in this country. Like you have to take on debt, but debt that you can pay for. You have to take on debt that you can pay for, right? That's the smart way to do it. Like parents that educate their children on smart finances will tell them like you have to get a credit card, but you can only spend however much you can pay at the end of the month. Like that's the appropriate way to do it. But in other countries, like there is no middleman like that. There is no need to fucking get a credit card at all, right? But unfortunately, the United States of America, if you want to fucking rent a place even, you have to have credit. They check your credit. And when they check your credit score goes down. It's insane. And I know this from my, again, personal experience, because even when I started making a little bit of money on top of my regular salary at the Young Turks, it was like 60 grand by the time I was leaving TYT, I couldn't rent an apartment. I had to, if you guys remember, I talked about it at the time with like Enes. Do you remember Enes Yilmazar, the YouTube realtor guy, who's now like obviously a very famous YouTube realtor guy? Back then, he was just my friend who didn't even have a YouTube channel at the time. This guy, he was just a guy who had done real estate in the past in Los Angeles. He did not have 4.1 million subscribers at all, right? And I actually got help from him and snuck myself into the apartment in 2019, the one bedroom in West Hollywood, because he knew a person that was supposed to be checking the credit scores at the company that owned, like at the developer or the management company that owned the apartment complex, because I didn't have credit. I didn't have any credit. So there was no way for me to actually get an apartment at all. No way for me to actually rent an apartment at all in Los Angeles. It's fucking insane. It's an insane system. Anyway, now Enes is also popping, which is so crazy to think, because I remember giving him, when he was like, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And I was like, oh, you can use my lights. And I gave him my, the light boxes that I had. And he was like filming stuff from his, filming stuff from his like living room in his apartment. Anyway, are you still in touch with him? Yeah. I photoshopped my bank statements to get into an apartment in downtown LA. All right.
I said that in 1994. McDonald's had just lost an infamous lawsuit over scalding hot coffee, and I had way more hair. Frankly, it's a little galling to hear the CEO of McDonald's complaining about income inequality, especially because companies like McDonald's are making the problem worse.
It's coming from inside the house.
McDonald's and other Fortune 500 companies like Walmart are famous for underpaying workers. As a result, many workers at these two corporations have to rely on the rest of us to finance government programs like food stamps and Medicaid to make ends meet. Meanwhile, their CEOs are paid roughly 1,000 times more than their typical employee. Big corporations have a history of union busting, further reducing the power of...
How do other countries give out auto loans, phone subsidies, etc., then credit histories make sense for taking on debt? I don't know, but I don't think other countries have that same culture around debt. Like, that's what I was trying to say. I don't... Like, I think they just look at your income. I assume they just probably look at your income and see if you can fucking pay for it.
Their workers to negotiate a living wage.
We don't think that a labor union is necessary.
All unions work at is taking a cut out of my pay.
In addition to taxpayers subsidizing corporations' low wages, there's a second way they burden the rest of us. Around 70% of the U.S. economy depends on consumer spending. As wealth concentrates in the richest 10%, the rest of America can't afford to buy enough to keep the economy running. Their buying power is dropping because of stagnant wages and inflation. The bottom 90% is already spending as much as they can, and in many cases going into debt to do so. Meanwhile, as the super rich become even richer, they can't possibly buy enough on their own to keep the economy running. We saw this trend before, during the roaring 1920s, when American wealth was concentrated at the top and everyone else had to go into debt to maintain their standard of living. When that debt bubble burst, we got the Great Depression. The so-called two-tiered economy isn't just a moral failing. It's dangerous for all of us. So what can we do about it?
The motion is adopted.
End the trickle-down hoax once and for all. Tax cuts for the wealthy make the rest of us worse off, not better. Fight for unions. Raise the minimum wage. Bust up big monopolies with the power to keep prices high. Demand corporations share their profits with workers so that when corporations do better, their workers do too. Build an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top. Because if we don't, we're all cooked.
Okay, but what about shareholder value for the super wealthy?